We'd like to welcome each and every individual to Voices of Integrity podcast for the movie book library. And today, I don't know if you've noticed these of late, they become a little more salty. Uh, so, um, and so I don't know. I think the X-Men were rated, at least most of them were rated PG. So how do you do a review that's maybe, an R rating? And so I don't know. There might be some crazy stuff. Now all of this builds on everything else, right? So this all interconnects with anything. We won't even like the first one here is, the Bible. That one's more violent than the X-Men. My gracious, right, Rosanna?
Yeah,
Like, like I don't know. She's reading parts, and I don't know where that good Baptist girl training came in, but she was not familiar with some of the things in the Bible, and it's like, whoa, that's some pretty interesting, let's say, stuff. And so, but we're going through and we're doing X-Men today. And why was that? Why is that so significant to me? Um, it's because um, they're mutants. They're abnormal people. People are drawn to them, but they're afraid of them too. And there's good mutants and bad mutants. So they have these supernatural, these powers, to bend steel or to read somebody's mind or to go ahead and become invisible. So they have these superpowers. Each of you have a superpower.
really.
Yeah.
What's my superpower?
You know how to bend people. You know how to move people without them ever even knowing they're being moved.
Interesting.
What's interesting about it?
Guess I haven't thought of that.
Really?
Yeah.
So you all have superpowers. One of them is not curiosity. I'll just say that.
What's my superpower?
Thanks for asking, man. You're like your mother. You can bend people. You can bend people. Holy cow. Your
Well,
ability to see things and understand and connect dots in people and move things, and it's absolutely insane. Like I've never seen anything like it. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I mean, it's weird on how, everybody thinks I'm strange, but I'm really not. It's my wife and kids who are strange. I've just studied them.
I know a lot of people don't figure out their life vision at such a young age.
Well, that's just that's
That's
just, yeah,
strange.
that's right. Like it's interesting. I have a friend and he said that he's a sarcasm retard. And Melissa, she said, he can't say that. I said, why not? She says, well, that's not very nice. I said, to who? And she said, well, to the mentally challenged, the retards. I said, they don't care. I told that to Elaine earlier today, and she says, yeah, no, they're fine with it. They want somebody to join them in their world. And she's like, and Melissa's like, well, but their parents are offended. And it's like, you have a retarded child. Like, hello. Like, what? They think that's a negative thing? Like, it's weird. Like, people are weird. So, every handicap, special needs, you know, they all have a superpower. Like every single human being is created in God's image. Like, so every single human being, and so every person who has a I think everybody's handicapped, so we're all handicapped. You might be thinking, what's your handicap? I'm not going to say it's my wife and my children because that wouldn't be nice. And for sure, I'm learning, even though I have social autism, to be nice. And so,
But it said in bowling that you have a handicap, that's a good thing, you know? So maybe
having a handicap is a good thing.
in bowling, it's considered a good thing, yes.
Are
Haven't
you bowling retard or?
No, I used to be on a league. I know that having a handicap in bowling is a good thing.
Yeah, you're like, you bring back trauma from my brother Dan. He was on a league too. He went ahead and said about his wife, but now he denies it. It's weird on how husbands deny and say things like, you can't make this up, Dan. Somebody ought to get this podcast out to Dan. So he's like, we were talking, the brothers, I have three brothers. I'm not saying they're retarded, spiritually or socially or anything like that. I'm not saying that. Not mostly just being honest, because that's important, you know, um, mostly because I don't want to, malign. I don't want to speak down to the retards. It's like, you compare my three brothers to retards. It's like, that's kind of diminishing them. Anyways, so we're talking about our wives and how, they never win arguments. And so Dan went ahead and said, he said, yeah, I was talking to my wife, April, and I told her that she ought to have a argument handicap, like in bowling. That's what he said. So why do you have a handicap? So it's fun.
So it's easier.
No, it's fun. So you go ahead and,
I do that to my
so
wife all the time.
what's that?
I do that to my wife all the time. Give her a handicap while we play games.
Right?
Make her more of a competition. It's
Right.
more for
That's
me
why
than her.
right. So somebody who's, bowls 50, it's fun to compete against somebody who's bowling 200, and
Right.
so you give them 150 handicap. And so, well, hi, Micaiah, honey. How are you, sweetie? I had so much fun yesterday. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So the X-Men for me, it helped me to realize that when you're gifted, when you use your superpower, the people are drawn to you. They want that superpower, and they're also afraid of you because you have the superpower. And then you have the people who lead the superpowers. You guys probably know the names. The guy in the wheelchair, he was leading the good superpowers, and then the guy who bent steel, he was leading the bad superpowers. And so there's good and bad ones. And you look at that, and then, you go back into the history, and the ones who are bad superpowers, and you look at this in all the children's cartoons too, is the bad people. You look at Star Wars, or all of them, the ones who are bad were their superpowers were not respected. They were mistreated. They were harmed. Somebody was hurt, and they decided to go and say, like, I forget, like my world is all collapsing. My mind is all collapsing around each other. It's like, and so some blogger went ahead, and some male blogger, like, really, people listen to you? And so something was said about, like, I go ahead and cheat on my wife. Like, you cheat on your wife, and it's like, if somebody said that to me, then I want to go cheat on her. What? Like, what? Like, it's like just stupid. But anyways, I see what people say, and it's like your superpowers can be used for good or used for bad. And so if you were in the room with somebody who had a gun, would you want them to know how to use it? And so it's a great question. And so with the X-Men, it exposed me to a world where, like, who writes these movies? Like, who comes up with these ideas? Like, where do they come up with this? When you're watching a movie, you think, who wrote this? Who created this? How did they come up? Like, I think it's genius. Even if it's bad, it's still genius. It's like, that's kind of dark or that's kind of weird, but it's like, how do you go ahead and put it together and how do you come up with the story and all kinds of stuff? And so the X-Men, it's like, so if you've been hurt, don't allow that hurt to go ahead and take your superpowers and use them in a bad way. And realize that the more you grow your superpowers, the more alone you're going to be, the more alone you're going to feel, and that's okay. I mean, it just is. So I could go on. I mean, it's just, and then I started saying, well, can I go ahead and learn how to do all these superpowers? Can I learn how to take my wife's superpower and learn hers and use hers? And can I, learn Ginger Ann and Jonathan's and Melissa's and Katrina's and Angela's and Ben's and Tim's? And so can I learn Micaiah's and Elena's and Jojo and Allie? Can I take all 10 of my grandchildren and can I take their superpowers and like, because if they don't learn how to use them, they're going to hurt themselves and other people. So it's like, what if you were like, is it Mystique or something? The one that could, there's a lot of sexualization on it, but I'm like, hey, I mean, but she could be a chameleon. Like she was a chameleon and she could go into, I'm like, could I do that? So like all of the X-Men characters, now I don't really watch them anymore. It's become like all the superheroes seem to be going darker and darker. Like it's just sad. It's just weird. It's like, but maybe it's a reflection of where our society is going. So anyone else have any thoughts on X-Men?
I've heard this story a few times, and it just seems like, or I've heard it a few times. Maybe I haven't learned what I needed to learn, but um, I feel unique, and I feel like you let me know that I'm unique quite a bit. But when it comes down to like friends and being close with people, it seems like I'm friends with a lot of people, but I'm not actually like close friends.
Right. Like my brother Ken, he went ahead and said to me, he's like, Mark, do you feel alone? And it's like, yeah, big time.
But one of the things I hear a lot is like if you try to be honest and you're an honest person, that's how you make close friends. That's how you get the other ones out. And then you're like, if you're honest with your friends and straightforward, then that's how you make close friends, and that's how you decide who's close friends. I've learned that hasn't been really as effective as people say it is.
Well, who's the people who are saying it? Because either they're not communicating well or you're not listening well.
It's just videos and
Well, that's probably one of your problems. So, so like I have 4 levels of friendship. Like who does this? Like who goes ahead and maps out their friendships? And so I was in Nashville probably 25 years ago with a client. And he's like, I top grade my friends. I'm like, really? What does that mean? And he's like there's some friends I meet, once a year. And then there's some friends, and I've done that for decades. And then there's some friends that I go ahead and do once a week. And so he categorized his friends into different categories. And I thought, how cool is that? Like, that makes a lot of sense to me. That's really interesting to me. And so I have 4 levels of friendships. The first level is people are going to like me. So because of my understanding of personalities, I can get anybody to like me very quickly. It's not that hard. It's actually really easy to get people to like me. You just tell them what they want to hear. And then you just observe it. You actually listen to, you ask questions and you're curious about them. And then you listen at a deep level. And when you identify their personality, you know their strengths, weaknesses, what they like, what they don't, turns them on, turns them off, if they're married, who they're married to, conflict of marriage. You know more about them than they know about themselves. And people are intoxicated by that. Literally. It has the same effect that alcohol does on their brain, except there's no after effects. And so people are mesmerized by it. So it's not really that hard to learn how to get people to like you. Level 2 is I'm going to irritate them, and that's nicely. They're going to get mad, angry, ticked. They're going to go ahead and holy cow. So Maggie Todd, I'll be forever thankful. Somebody ought to pass this podcast along to my brother Dan, and then pass it along to, Maggie Todd too. So Maggie Todd helped me to understand this was probably 30 years ago, maybe 35 years ago. So there was a lady in my dad's church, and she didn't like me. She never told me that. I could just tell. She did not like me. And her husband, he liked me. And it was a little church. So there's 125 Baptist church. We went to church 3 times a week, like for the first 40 years of my life. And so, man, I was in church all the time. So when you have 100, when you have 100, 125 people in a church and you're there 3 days a week, you go ahead and get to know them. So for 5 years, and her husband, he liked me a lot, not saying a lot because he liked everybody. It's weird because he just called me, I don't know, out of the blue 2 years ago, which was weird. I hadn't talked to him in years. It's like, Mark, how you doing? Like, okay, Rich, good to talk to you again. And so she didn't like me. And I knew that. So out of respect for her and the relationship, I'm like, I'm not going to get real close to him. So I didn't. I was pleasant with him and everything. And after 5 years of coming to the church, they came over to our house and she was sitting at the table. And she says, Mark, I've never liked you, which was really cool to me. Like, I'm like, oh, like, I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if I'm weird. None of you ever do, I'm sure. Like, none of you are thinking, that guy's weird. Micaiah, sweetheart, do you ever think Grandpa's weird?
No.
No? Like, what answer should I give? So my grandkids, they came up, you know how Grandpa or Papa, or they come up with all the names. What did my grandkids call me? Cray Cray. Like, really? Cray Cray. That's Cray Cray Grandpa. Anyways, so I'm excited because I don't know. I'm like, I don't know. I never asked her, do you like me? Do you not like me, Maggie? I never asked that. And so when she said, Mark, I've never liked you, I'm like, that is so cool. Like Maggie, why? Like, I've thought that for 5 years, but I've never understood why. And she said, you are the most intense person in the world I've ever met. I've never met somebody more intense. And my mind is racing, my photographic auditory memories going back over the 5 years. And I'm like, I don't ever remember. So I said, Maggie, I don't ever once remember being intense around you. And she says, do you remember the first time we met, Mark? And I said, I apologize. I don't. I guess I was supposed to, but I did. She says, I was at the front of the church. I'm like, okay. And she said, you walked in the back doors of the church. I said, okay. I said, was I upset? I knew I wasn't swearing, so that never happens. And so I'm like, was I upset or angry or what? She's like, no, you just walked in. And I remember thinking, well, that's kind of strange. Here's a fine Christian woman that doesn't like me because I walk in like what? Fortunately, I didn't know my feelings were important at the time. So I just like it was curious. I'm like, so I am my persona, my energy is so powerful that if I just walk in, I mean, I don't do any, I'm not yelling, just walk. My very presence is so powerful that a good Christian woman is not going to like me. And I thought, huh, I need to probably be careful about how I walk and my presence. So level 2 is Mark's going to irritate you. You're going to hate Mark. And Jim Bontrager, he did that cool video on me. Like, whoa, that was one wonderful gift. Then level 3 is you're going to love Mark. There's not very many people that get through level 3, level 2. They're just not, which is fine. You know, it's okay. Level 4 is our visions are going to connect. And the problem with that is most people don't have a life vision. They don't have, they don't know why they were created. They don't know who they were created to be or what they were created to do. Like they don't know. So if they don't know, well, then the visions can't connect because there's not an awareness. And so Ben, for me, I get to decide what level people are in. Once Rosanna, my wife for 40 years, came up to the office and she heard me being assertive, intense to somebody. And I come home that night and she's like, who was that on the phone? You were ripping their head off. And I'm like, oh, that was Tom Ninnis. She's like, isn't he the one that referred us like over $260,000 in business in the last 15 months? And I'm like, uh-huh. She's like, you can't talk to him that way. And I said, well, let me explain something. That's why he referred $260,000 in business. And she said, I don't know why people pay you. And I said, right? You and the kids get it for free and you don't value it at all. And so what's strange, Ben, about me is when people think I'm being nice to them, I'm not. I see the flaws. I'm an empath, plus the understanding of personalities and 61 years on this planet. I see it. I can feel their flaws. I can feel people and where they're off. So I'm not being nice to them. I'm just being selfish. And when people think I'm a jerk, I'm not being a jerk. I'm not stupid. Like I understand when I say something to you that you don't like, you're not going to like me. So when I'm being nice to people, I'm not really being nice to them. I'm being selfish, but they like that. And then when I'm being mean to them, I'm not being mean, I'm actually being loving. And most people don't get that. And so, questions, Ben, that you have?
Nope, not in that area.
Yeah, I wonder if I can go ahead and figure out how to go ahead and just help people discover their life vision. And then I just skip over levels 1, 2, and 3 and just go right to level 4. When your life vision's bigger than death, you get over stuff. Like you just do. And people liking you, it's a dime a dozen. It's so easy. I mean, it's so easy to get people to like you. It's insane. Mark, good to have you back again today. We're always interested when people come back a second time. And so why did you come back a second time, Mark?
Um, I just was curious to be back on the show. I wasn't sure I was Don invited me the first time. I wasn't sure I was welcome to come back each time, but thanks.
Yeah, no, you're welcome every week.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, the difference between this podcast show and everyone else is that this one's not really looking at getting millions or billions of people to listen to. Like, it's like, you know, and so it's very, very different. Most podcasts are about the ego of the presenter. I mean, that's what it is. Let's call it what it is, you know? And so this one's not. And so when we look at the movie book review that we're going over today is X-Men. Anybody else have any other thoughts on X-Men? The movie?
Nope.
Okay, we're going to go into part 2 of the podcast, which is podcast for passions. And so that's when it gets a little bit interesting. And so good to have you on, Micaiah. Grandpa loves when you're on and you're listening and attentive. And so if you're able to stick around, it'll heat up. It'll get a little bit more intense here. And so Micaiah, she helps Grandpa stay in line so he doesn't get totally whacked out. And so if you have any, I mean, invite somebody else, like find your superpowers. Everybody's got them. Every single person in the world has, and then figure out how to combine your superpowers with somebody else's superpowers. So there's 8 billion people on the planet. So Ben, there's 8 billion people on the planet. And so learning to be okay with yourself, where you're like, I'm okay with myself. If it's just me, it's okay. And then everything else is a gift. Anything beyond one person is a gift. I would say that most fathers longing, their heart's desire is to have a relationship with a son that you and I have. I think most sons would die to have a relationship with a father that you have. Like what we have is crazy special. It's insane. It actually is. But you and I probably don't appreciate it because you've never had another dad, so you don't know what it's like. But I had my dad. And my relationship with my dad was very, very, very different than your relationship with me is. And I love that. And so, there's something that's pretty amazing about friendships and about relationships. And maybe in the, passions, voices of integrity for passion today, maybe we talk about friendships and about how do you develop deep friendships. Like everybody wants them. It's weird. That's what everybody wants, the deep relationships, the deep friendships, but they don't know how to get them, or they're not willing to do the work. It takes work. They're not willing to make the sacrifices. It takes sacrifices, and they're not willing to take the risk. Like Alvin Miller, he went ahead and said some amazing things to Ben I'll never forget. So stick around for the next one, and then invite other people. And always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.